rights, with human rights. Right now I'm running as a Virginia candidate for Senate, and I'm part of the District 13, which is Loudoun County and Prince William County. During the time that I've been working with immigration law. I've been working also with human trafficking law, also labor, the forced labor that we call. And I want to explain a little bit. I just want to know also what's my audience. If you're here for more information, I would like to know, like starting with you, like very briefly, what's my audience? I
We
know
can just
there's
do
a
another
lot of
quick round if we
nonprofits.
could all, we don't mind going around again. We may have one or two people come in anyway. Again, just say who you are and what agency you're with. I'm John.
Yes.
I'm John Bowman, so I'm with Church World Service Refugee Resettlement Office here in Richmond, and Kayla's from my office as
You are,
well.
okay.
Yes.
I'm Lucretia Fargo, Midland Community Friends, and also with the Virginia Interfaith Center of Public Policy.
I'm Peter Fargo with Midland Friends also.
I'm Sharon Rapp, with Reestablish Richmond. We do refugee support services.
Alex Senna, Virginia Center for Inclusive Communities.
Margaret Benson, Henrico County Health Department.
Audrey Short, Virginia ESL at VCU.
David Sams, Executive Director of the Community Tax Law Project and Federal Staff Attorney.
I'm Brittany. I work at Commonwealth Public Charities as a foster care worker with undocumented youth and
My name is LaDonna Lancer. I'm an immigration attorney, and I also work for the St. Paul's Baptist Church in terms of education.
I'm Daniel with Henrico Health Department.
I'm Ben Large, and I work at Housing Opportunities in Louisville, Virginia.
Alex Kiesman with Housing Opportunities,
Thank you, all of you. Now I feel more comfortable with the audience that I have, and I probably know that most of you know what's TPS. So TPS stands for Temporary Protected Status. The first TPS was done by an act that was 1990. I'm not good with numbers, but that was for El Salvador. El Salvador was the first country that actually got the TPS, and it was by Congress. And then when this happened, 20 years later, they are being now going through a very harsh situation in which, imagine having your family being dismembered by an executive order that was temporary, but temporary for me is not 20 years. So I don't wanna give you more information that you probably know. There's also another part of the TPS, which we know: Honduras, Nicaragua, Haiti, Syria, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan. And the reasons for the humanitarian, because this is a humanitarian protection that the government gave it to certain countries. And it's been given in cases of disasters, like earthquakes, also in civil conflicts. And like it happened with El Salvador, there was there was a civil conflict, and also was the Hurricane Mitch that happens also to Honduras and Nicaragua. In total, we have 340,000 TPS holders. Out of those, 263,000 are from El Salvador. El Salvador is the one that at this point has been canceled, and they have only 18 months to live. Now, I'm gonna put you, because I work with legislations, I work in the Capitol here in Richmond. I'm gonna put you in this situation. I want you to think about 3 people that means the world to you, that is part of your family. Let's say, I don't know, your mom, your dad, your grandma. I want you to think about those people right now. And I want you to think also that, let's pretend we have it in this room.
I like to be talking always standing because I feel like I can see you better.
Among those 3 people, what we're gonna do now is I want you to choose one of those 3 people and leave it with me in this room. Let's pretend we have it all. I want you in your head to picture that person that will stay with me in this room. Who you will leave. Now, I want you to walk with another two people that you decide to that door. And by the door, once you choose those two special favorite people, I want you to leave that person at the door. And now you're walking with one. Should be your best or favorite, right? I hope you have it in your mind now. Because that's the person that when I'm crossing, I'm gonna call a police officer. And I'm gonna ask them to yank it away from you. And your life journey will be completely disrupted. I will arrest that person and send it to jail. And from now on, you have to live day and night alone in your journey. That is the story of the TPS holders. That is the story of the dreamers. That is what I see every day in my work. I'm gonna tell you two stories because it's very hard to understand this unless you are in those shoes of a dismember of families. We've been working with different acts. I'm a progressive, very bipartisan, moderate person, but Democrat. We've been working with at least 2 acts to pass Congress. None of those are going to help these acts are not going to help TPS, but we know for a fact that we can push Congress. We know for a fact that there's an Attorney General right now in Virginia, Mark, who can push Jeff Sessions to ask for something that is a deferred deportation. It's been using long ago, and it can hold the TPS for some time. There is also another act that has been passing in Congress. We have one by Luis Gutierrez. He passed it. And there's another 4, some of them Democratic, Republicans. And what's happening there is pretty similar to DREAM, but it's not inclusive to TPS as of now. What we're doing right now is we're going against the wall all the time. With Team Kane, we put something that it was going to, we thought is going to pass, which was very sad. It was pretty much cutting some part of what we call migration chain, because Republicans don't like the migration chain that they call, which for me is like, dismember of families. And the reason is because with TPS you cannot have any status. If you, for example, marry a citizen and you cross the border, and I'm gonna tell you 2 stories about that very soon. There was a case at the 6th court, in the appeals, 6th Circuit Court. This was the case of Suazo, and Suazo was the wife, versus USCIS. And what happened in this case was that the lady married a TPS holder. The TPS holder crossed the border, they have kids, and he couldn't adjust his status. And they didn't want to ask for a waiver. So they went to the court and said, this don't make sense, it's nonsense. I've been living 15 years here. I crossed because I was worried about the disaster that was happening in my country, so I crossed, I ran. And now I'm married after like maybe 10 years, in 2010 he married. This wife, which is a citizen, she has the right to bring me here. I have my kids who are citizens, but why I have to ask for a waiver? Why? I should just have the right to stay with my family. Well, unfortunately, this case was denied. Judges sent the case back to USCIS and dispersion of USCIS, sadly. And then let me explain to you what happened with the waiver. I had a case of, because one thing connects to another, so I have a case of forced labor. So this lady, her name is Maria Jimena. She comes in tears. It was 6 months that her husband was gone. She comes and say, I need your help. It's been an agony for me and my 3 kids. I said, what happened? She said, well, my husband, a TPS holder. We were married for the past 10 years. I didn't want to adjust my status because I want to be a green card. But finally, I passed the test. I become citizen, and I said, okay, let's make you a citizen too. So they went through the process that we all know, the I-130. And then finally they sent a waiver of inadmissibility, so he went to El Salvador. And in El Salvador, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the waiver of inadmissibility, but it's, are you familiar with the waiver? Okay. What the waiver of inadmissibility, what it is you ask for a waiver because you're not admissible in this country because you cross the border without permission. So now you ask a waiver for that. So now you become admissible again. So it's called waiver of inadmissibility. So normally the people that cross the border, they have to request that, and it's at the discretion of whoever's been an officer who's going to interview. This guy, unfortunately, was denied. Many people get denied, but he was in El Salvador already. So he's worried. He's like, what should I do? I've been denied, I can't cross. I can't see my kids anymore. I'm now in El Salvador, and he was worried also because his high schooler was graduating in June. So what he did, what do you think a father will do to see his family? He took the risk. That is gonna be actually the burden. So he hired, we call them coyotes, polleros, which is someone that pretty much gets paid to cross the person through the border. He hired this person, he paid $7,000. And while he crossed, he made his last call to his wife. He was at the Mexican border and he was going to cross now Texas. That's all we know from him. He was sold in the middle by the same coyote to actually the drug cartel to work. And then later on, a year later, a month ago, we find out that his bonds were in something that is called the purple casa, la casa morada, which was a place in which they buried a bunch of people that come crossing. This is what the people has to go through to reunite to their families. This is just one example. I can be the whole afternoon here, telling you 1, 2. I brought my daughter today because she had an experience too. When she was in kindergarten, we had Manuel. Manuel likes arroz con frijoles with Jessica. Manuel likes all the things that we do as Spanish people, the music, they talk Spanglish. He has a mother who's single like me, so, but there was a difference. I have a citizenship, and she didn't. So one day, Manuel comes to the kindergarten, and this is a 6-year-old kid, and sits with Jessica, and he's in tears. He said, at 4 in the morning, they didn't just take my mother, but my grandmother. I know them very well. Very good people. Hardworking women. Single mother. We have to emancipate the little girl, the 17-year-old girl. Do you understand when I say emancipation, that the girl has to become actually a young adult? We need to make it an adult, legally, so she can take care of the kid, so the kid doesn't go to foster care. Every day, this kid would cry in the school. Every single day at lunchtime. I didn't see them again. It's been like 2 years. I know that the girl went to California because she was looking for a better job to keep up with the son, and he was not able to make it. Mother in Mexico, I don't know. I never have contacts with her. But I see this every day. The people is taken as criminals, arrested, and sitting in jails, in ICE detentions. It's not just about TPS, it's about families. But we can do something about it. All of you advocate for these people, and I thank you for that. We need to be more proactive. We need to look for action now. And that comes with two things. One, choosing the right people that is going to be running in offices, choosing for the right people that is going to stay in Congress. People that understand the families are important. The values are important. And we also have to start acting more. There is an attorney general. He can put a pressure in this attorney general, which is Jeff Sessions. We can do that. We can put pressure. Congress is the only one who can revert and make it happen. Congress. Yes, we use the judges, we use the judicial system to make injunctions, to make temporary solutions. But Congress is the one who can make a fix and an immigration reform, and we can do it together. I'm sure we can. And I thank you today. There's not much I can say. I don't know if you guys have any questions. I don't know what else I can say to you. Is there any questions? I don't think there's questions, but it's just silent up. But hey, we can do it. Thank you so much.
So does anyone